You're with Julian on the Brown Notes, and Benjamin Netanyahu's biggest lie that he wants to destroy Hamas. He needs Hamas massively, and it's a complete fallacy to say that he is actually trying to destroy it. I did a piece a couple of weeks back, or maybe a month or so ago, about how the two-state solution being formally acknowledged by the Israeli Prime Minister as being something he's never actually supported or had any intention of honouring, despite all his Western backers explicitly following that path. During the recent conflict in Gaza, he has just basically said that's never been any part of his plans, which we all knew. And I did a piece on that about how that wasn't even possible. Like the idea of Israel absolving the Gaza Strip and the West Bank into Israel and just being one country, because of one very inconvenient reason: the 5.1 million Jews in Israel and the I don't know what the exact figures were, but 2.2 million Palestinians in Israel would be joined by about 2.7 million more Palestinians, which would mean they would likely never vote in another Jewish government, given how fractured the vote is in Israel between left and right, and the fact of Benjamin Netanyahu being so wildly unpopular that he has to form a coalition every time he's in government. But the entire Western world is following this paradigm that he has set up, which is that he set out to destroy Hamas, and that's what this war is, and that's why 30,000 babies and women being murdered is acceptable, just to destroy Hamas. Now, every Western person overviewing this conflict has said how much stronger this has made Hamas. And Netanyahu is continuing the line of saying, we're continuing this war until we've destroyed Hamas. 7 months in, or however long we are in, they are stronger because they are thriving and growing the more you kill Palestinians. The more extreme. What do you think happens when your whole family is wiped out? Do you sit around and write letters, or do you join the only group in your country that is fighting Israel? So there is a complete lie that none of our Western journalists or Western governments are pulling him up on. Like, Netanyahu is a political animal. So there's two questions, is like, what is his real aim? And why is nobody actually pulling him up on the fact that Hamas is not being destroyed at all? It's actually probably stronger now than when they started this current round of conflicts. Netanyahu grew up a lot in America. He was a child in America and back and forth between Israel and America. He went to college in MIT in Boston. He worked in America. He's been Prime Minister 3 times. 96 to 99, 2009 to 2021, and 22 to the present day. He has been completely consumed by corruption charges in the last decade for business dealings, not even to do with war crimes or anything, but for business dealings. He is a survivalist, probably the most survivalist. Even like Silvio Berlusconi could take a book out of Benjamin Netanyahu's pages. He has to form coalitions every time he forms government because he doesn't ever get a vote that's strong enough for him to form government. Now, his connection with Hamas is a lot bigger than is being let on. Hamas formed in 87, and they formed after the first Intifada against Israeli occupation about 40 years ago. So when people tell you that this kicked off on October the 6th last year or October the 7th last year, they formed after the first round of this, well, not even the first round, but one of the rounds of this that led to the first Intifada 40 years ago. They were supported by Israel initially. The biggest lie being told, like when Hamas came on the scene, they were supported by Israeli elements because they represented a fracturing opposition to the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, and their political wing Fatah. They represented a way of weakening any future Palestinian state. So you've got one side that is globally well known, the PLO, Yasser Arafat, Fatah, So the Israeli side, or certain elements of it, supported Hamas to weaken the reigning leaders of the Palestinian cause, which was at that time Yasser Arafat, the PLO, and Fatah. Now, one of the biggest lies told is that Hamas have this mandate to destroy Israel. They had a mandate to destroy Israel in 1988. In 2017, they changed their mandate to accept the borders of 1967, which is broadly analogous to them losing most of their land and what they have today, and of not calling for an end to Israel. A lot of people make the mistake of saying, well, they won't recognize Israel, because countries in general don't formally recognize other countries. And to ask a country that you're currently occupying to recognize you is fraught with a number of problems, particularly the fact that you're then validating their occupation of you. So it's a complete farce to say, like, most countries don't formally recognize Israel in the West. It's just not something that's normally done. But they aren't asking for the destruction of Israel. Now, the support that Netanyahu personally has, and this is from the Times of Israel itself, for years Netanyahu propped up Hamas, and this is from the day after the Hamas incursion in Israel. The Premier's policy of treating the terror group as a partner at the expense of Abbas, who represented the Fatah PLO side of the equation, and Palestinian statehood has resulted in wounds that will take Israel years to heal. For years, various governments led by Benjamin Netanyahu took an approach that divided power between the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, bringing the Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas to his knees, so they're actually bringing someone who was a much more moderate character to their knees and supporting a much more militant group. And that's the current Netanyahu government that did this. The idea was to prevent Abbas from advancing towards establishing a Palestinian state. Thus, amid this bid to impair Abbas, Hamas was upgraded from a mere terror group to an organization in which Israel held indirect negotiations via Egypt, and one that was allowed to receive infusions of cash from abroad by the Israeli government. How often do you hear that said? Hamas was also included in discussions about increasing the number of work permits Israel granted to Gaza, which kept money flowing into Gaza, meaning food for families and the ability to purchase basic products. Israeli officials said these permits, which allowed Gazan labourers to earn higher salaries than they would have in the enclave, were a powerful tool to help preserve calm. Towards the end of Netanyahu's fifth term in 2021, approximately 3,000 work permits were issued to Gazans. The number climbed to 5,000 during the Bennett-Lapid government and rose sharply to 10,000. Since Netanyahu returned to power in 2023, it soared to 20,000. The basic scheme of this side of the Israeli government, led by Netanyahu, is that they have used Hamas and allowed Hamas to receive funding from abroad to split any formal Palestinian statehood by attacking the more moderate Palestinian representation of Fatah. And now they're crying about what's happened to them. But it's a lie, because they are Netanyahu himself is completely dependent on Hamas. He would be so much weaker if he was just dealing with Fatah and there weren't any attacks like the ones that we've seen from October 7th, which themselves are a result of, a year or 2 years of continual attacks in the Gaza Strip. If he didn't have this incredibly vivid, violent enemy to face off, he himself would be in extreme political danger and probably prosecuted for numerous financial corruption charges. He keeps Hamas dangling as his reason to exist, a warmongering president who will fight to the death. which Israel doesn't need or want, really. But he needs them. He is so selfish that he will put the deaths of 30,000 Palestinian women and children, and not to mention 1,000 or so Israeli civilians, just to survive in politics. This man is evil, pure evil. And it's a complete lie to say that he either wants to destroy Hamas or is destroying Hamas. They're even stronger now than when he started. So what is the end game? His own political survival. It's as simple as that.